So Jason, we're about to walk through the factory. Can you tell us sort of each separate stage that we're going to be looking at to create the Weathertex products?
Yeah. We'll start at our chip yard. That's where our timber comes in, and we chip the timber up into chips, turn the wood chip into wood fibre.
Yep.
We mix that wood fibre with water and a little bit of wax, and it goes on our board machine where we create a wet lap, goes into our press area. From there, it goes through to our grading station, to our paint lines. And then from there into our warehouse where we package the product and goes onto a truck.
Sent to Australia and all around the world.
All around the world.
It's pretty exciting, mate. I can't wait to go and have a look. Let's go check it out.
Yeah, so majority of the energy in the factory is steam energy. So we have 2 coal-fired boilers. Quite an interesting story with this one. Actually came off a steamship back in the 1940s, 50s. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a very old boiler that we've got repurposed to use in our factory. And we've got a more modern gas boiler, which acts as a bit of a backup when we have different parts of the factory running. We've got modern equipment, computer equipment. It's a bit of a mix of modern technology with old technologies.
What's really amazing is that the engine was from an old steamer in the 1940s, still sits up there. It was so good that it was repurposed and it's still running.
Yeah, so this is the inside of the boiler, 13 and 1600 degrees Celsius.
Wow. You can feel that heat, mate. Create the energy for the whole.
Yeah, so that's just heating up water in the cylinder.
Yeah.
Pressurizes it, gets to a certain pressure, turns into steam.
Yep.
And that steam flows into the factory. Because, the other option's electricity, but steam's more efficient for us.
Sure.
So
Wow.
it all starts out here. We buy in exclusively Australian hardwood timber, sustainably harvested. Comes from probably within 300 kilometres of the factory. Primarily eucalypt species, only certain types of species. We make sure we get the right
And
one.
you've learned that over years of trial and error.
Yeah, since 1938 when the factory first started running.
Okay.
We chip it up into this chip, and then that goes through the process.
Great.
It's natural timber.
Yeah.
Yeah, we start with the chip.
Yeah.
It goes through our mason guns.
Yes.
And this is where the steam comes into play. About 120 odd kilos goes into a vessel.
Yep.
It's injected with very high pressure steam. It allows the chip to soak in moisture. And then we have a very short, sharp injection of high pressure steam that obliterates the chip and literally converts that chip into wood fibre. This is the unique part of Weathertex. It's not done anywhere else in the world. And it's a secret sauce for our process because in converting this chip into fibre, it does a couple of things. It takes out the sugars that termites like.
Yep.
It allows us to maintain the density or the strength of the product. And the other thing too is even though we get rid of the sugars and starches that termites like to eat, we keep the lignin. The lignin is the glue that allows us to put all this back together.
Almost like a natural resin.
Natural resin, yeah. Other companies would use resin products.
Add it.
Yeah, it's like a glue. They'd add resin into their process. We don't have to do any of that. Just because we maintain that natural lignin, we use that later in the process when we press the product as a natural glue. So that's why our product's so natural and sustainable, because literally we're using timber and a little bit of paraffin wax to add some water resistance to the product.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's just wax.
So it's like candle wax, just enough to add some water resistant characteristics. These 2 vessels in front of us are the mason guns. That's where the wood chip's going in to one of those guns at the moment. We can tell by looking at that screen, even though it's not obvious.
Yeah.
And then once the wood chip goes in, high pressure steam from one of the boilers starts to come in.
Yep.
That soaks the wood chip. So that is a shot of high pressure steam at about 850 psi that's just gone into that vessel and obliterated the chip into wood fibre that we saw earlier. And as I said before, it takes out the starches and the sugars that the termites like to nibble on. So this is a bit like Wheat Bix and water.
The fiber's coming through here after refining, and it goes through a screen. So this is where the water with the sugars and solubles come out, and we separate that. And the fiber and a bit of water comes through that goes into the stock preparation tank. So at this point of the process, we're controlling the consistency. It's ready for the board baking process. We use about 1 million litres of water a day, and it comes out of a natural aquifer. So all our wastewater goes through a treatment plant, and then we irrigate an area at the back of the factory, which is a pine forest.
So it's going back.
It's sinking back through the sand.
Amazing.
Natural filter. So again, we're sustainable in what we do, and with our waste streams, we're able to reclaim that 1 million litres of water. So once the pulp goes through these things, they're called raffinators. So basically all these are doing is breaking the fibre length down into smaller fibres so we can control the strength of our product. Sometimes the fibres clump together, so they're separating out the individual strands.
Right.
And just making sure we don't get, very, very
So
long.
if they're shorter, it becomes denser. It's rather than having like.
But there's a compromise. If we go too short, we can lose the characteristics. So the length is a critical factor. At this point, we've got the consistency of the wood fibre water mixture right.
Yep.
We've got the fibre distribution right. Very similar to a paper making process. So everything is prepared at this point to then create what we call a wet lap. The pulp goes onto a screen.
Yep.
And we've got a vacuum system that's sucking the water out to create this wet lap. So at this point, there's still probably 60% moisture in there. Yeah. It's the starting of forming the shape of the product.
Yeah.
So we're sucking the water out here.
Yes.
And we're pressing the water out here.
So the gauge of this is a sheet of product.
Exactly.
This machine behind me is a very clever but simple machine. It's actually compressing all of the pulp. It's slowly compressing it down. It's removing the liquid content. You can smell in the air how clean it is. It almost smells like just mulch out in the garden. It's such a natural smell. It's an exciting process.
So this is a high pressure water cutter. It's cutting it perfectly square. When the factory was designed, it was back in the imperial days, so it's 12 foot wide by 12 foot long.
Yeah, that helps.
And at a later part in the process, we cut the length to what we want.
Bigger step.
So at this point, we're putting the wet lap into the stationary rack, which then transfers into a loading rack. So the wet lap's gone in.
Yep.
High pressure water.
All that water's being sucked out.
Now the water will start coming out as it presses. So at this point, the wet lap will stay in for about 25 minutes for the board to cook. And each one of these openings on the press has a plate that the steam goes into and gets heated up.
Creates the process.
Yeah. It's either smooth, so the smooth finish, woodsman for the wood grain,
Yep.
and a wrap thorn for that thorn timber look. So the boiler that we spoke about that came off the steam chip,
Yeah.
that boiler supplies the steam to all these floor presses, You can't really do it any other way. Electricity would be too expensive. With steam, it's just natural steam flow that goes into all the nooks and crannies within the plate.
Yep.
The product stays in there for about 25 minutes and that cooks. So the lignin will start to melt with the heat and join the timber fibres up. So that's our natural glue.
It's a science, but it's a really simple process.
And once the boards come out of the press, it's pretty much 0% moisture. All the moisture is out of the product.
So the next layer is coming across now. This is all the sheets that have gone through the press from about that thick down to this thick, but there's still moisture inside. This is now sliding into the next level of pressing. There's 20 sheets going in at a time. It's going to lift it in and press all of this in, and then it will stay there for about 25 minutes to be able to make sure that it's stable. And all of that liquid that's disappearing is not being wasted. It's going outside, not far from here. It's irrigating the natural bush that's going back through the soil into the underground water where the water's coming from again. It's a complete circular process, and I've got to say, I'm so excited about that.
So in this area we've got two what we call paint lines. That effectively takes our full sheets and puts different groove patterns in it. So at the moment we're making 150mm groove pattern, but it's a paint line as well. So we can either spray or curtain coat the paint, which is a primer. The other important factor here is they're checking for imperfections. Some of the imperfections in this particular case are like black spots, so we can put it back through the line and paint it. Still good product.
This is actually the 150 groove. The boys are stacking them. They're going to go back through the process again and be repressed with another line. That allows them to have that thinner profile of the 75mm, meaning it's gone through the process twice. Very smooth.
Here we are on one of our paint lines. We take full sheets, we send them through some saws that get cut into the narrower planks. It's in this room here that we're putting the profile into the plank. So we have a number of different profiles that we manufacture, and it all happens in this specially designed acoustic enclosure. Once the profile is put into the product, it comes through a vacuum box. This is where we're applying a coat of primer, and then from here it goes down through a first infrared oven. Now that the planks have been through the infrared oven, they're getting transferred over to go through our steam oven. So this does the final curing of the paint primer. So here we are at the end of the paint line. And now, very importantly, we're doing a sorting exercise. So the operators here today are looking for imperfections or defects in the product, and then from this point it goes through our wrapping machine to get wrapped and put into the warehouse.
So here's essentially a great way to look at the various profiles on option. You've got the natural product, so you've got the 75mm, the 150, and then the 300, depending on the job you're creating. Then there's the primed boards. And then there's the Woodsman. So this is actually a primed version, still giving you that natural character. These ones are to be painted. These ones can be left to natural elements and be able to weather naturally outside, or they can be stained to a range of colours. So it's exciting to see all of the options. So this is the final section here where everything is separated into all of their profiles and all of the different orders, ready to be shipped nationally and internationally. They ship to over 16 countries, including France, Holland, even Saudi Arabia. Everything's labelled. Now I just have to find which one's mine for my house. Okay. Jason, thanks so much. I'm familiar with the product. I know the benefits of the natural wood pulp with the wax, but things like the use of water and even the smell throughout the factory, it's blown me away. What do you think about working with Weathertex?
Look, James, I've been here 3 years, enjoyed every minute of it. But having said that, we've got people who've been here 30, 40 years. So it is a good place to work.
Well, it's utterly exciting to be able to walk through the whole process. I've really enjoyed it, mate. Thanks so much. Thank you.